guys, welcome to another hair with Yinka video. So for today I will be showing you guys how I make one of my favorite wigs currently in my collection, and it is a natural Indian hair wave wig that I made into a bob. So first you want to get your mesh dome cap. I prefer to use mesh because it's breathable, it's stretchy, and whether you decide to wear a wig cap underneath or not, you are guaranteed that your scalp and your hair will breathe. No issues. So now you want to get your closure and align it to the front of your mesh cap, and then proceed to get T-pins and secure it in place. This way your wig stays in place, your closure does not move, and you can stitch your closure in place with peace. I normally like to go for 5 to 6 pins, and as I'm pinning it, I like to move the hair out of the way and stretch the closure out to ensure that it's not bunching up while I am sewing. And this also allows your closure to lay flatter on your head once you're done making your wig, and it is stretched naturally by the circumference of your head. So on this particular closure, I'm probably going to be using 7. So here, guys, back here, this is really important. You definitely want to make sure that you pin at least 2 or 3 T-pins, because in the past when I first started to make wigs, that back area of the closure would never lay flat and it would bother me so much. But I finally mastered the technique. So you want to make sure that your closure is pinned flat on the top of your wig cap. And now I will be starting an inch out with sewing the closure down. And what I normally like to do is I like to start about an inch or half an inch out, and then I go forward towards the front of the closure, and then for reinforcement I go back again and I start the whole process of stitching the closure down to the wig cap. And you'll find the stitch pattern that works for you. But for me, I prefer to do an understitch and then loop it around once, just to ensure that my loop is tight and nothing moves. Some people do their stitch without looping it around, but I find that that can tend to have your closure or your tracks moving and shaking and not as sturdy as if you did the under stitch with a loop to secure it. And when you get to the end of your closure, I like to do a double loop on the last stitch, and that will ensure everything is in place. So now it is time to lay these tracks. So my first track is normally always doubled, especially if I'm going to be doing like a bob or a short look, especially even if it's long. So rule of thumb, this is just my opinion and technique. I always double my first track, and I always go through the weft on each ends, but as I'm stitching I go around the wefts. I have seen some people when they stitch they go through each weft, and I just find like very time consuming, and it is not that fun of a process trying to go through doubled wefts. So just keep it simple. Again, you want to do an under stitch, loop it around the needle once, and just keep it moving. And as you sew, you will find your flow. And when I'm making my wigs, I like to put on a podcast. I like to listen to an audiobook, because I just feel like, you know, why not be productive and also make a wig at the same time? Kill two birds with one stone. So this is pretty much what I will do throughout the entire wig, going from end to end. You can decide if you want to fold the wefts or if you prefer to cut. But for me, especially if the hair was quite pricey, I prefer to fold the wefts. But then when I get to the top of the wig, depending on the length, the style, I might cut it, and that's fine with me, because at the end of the day I want to make sure that my wig lays as flat as possible. But in the back I do want body and volume, so 9 times out of 10 you will find me folding my wefts and just continuing to sew. And as you guys can see, the cap is not like super tight on the mannequin head, which is perfectly fine, because you want to have a little wiggle room when you put your wig on, so that it's not like so tight and it doesn't stretch. So that's just my point of view on that, and this is pretty much what I will be doing back and forth. So we are almost halfway there. I just wanted to give you guys a little update so you guys can see how far I've come, and also to show you guys how I attach another bundle. So as you can see with this particular weft, I am coming to the end and I will start a new bundle. What I like to do is I like to lay the wefts on top of each other, probably ½ an inch on both sides, and then I'll take my needle and I will go through the weft. So this will definitely ensure that both wefts will stay together, will not break, and have a very tight and secure hold. So I like to go through the wefts first, and then I continue sewing onto my mesh dome cap just as normal. So we are getting very close to being done. Once I get this far up to the closure, I normally like to braid it as I'm doing right now, and then just tuck it underneath, or if you have a banana clip, you can clip it out of your way. This way you can just move with ease as you finish up your wig. And again, I am pretty much going side to side, and I believe I am now cutting the wefts at this point. Like I said previously, once I get to the top, I do like to cut the wefts just to ensure that my wefts lay as flat as possible. So now we are laying the last track, which I like to just get a feel for how far the remainder of hair I have will go. And I will take a T-pin and pin it down just so that it does not move at all, and I can accurately have an idea of how far my hair will go around the closure and measure it accurately. And normally with the last track, I like for it to be right under the closure, and I will take my needle, do an understitch to the top where the closure meets, and now I will go through the weft of my last piece of track and just stitch it close to the closure. Again, I don't like to actually touch the closure with this last track, because in case I need to cut out the closure or repair the closure, I just like to keep a little gap so that I can maneuver, or even if I wanted to turn this wig into a U-part wig, I can just cut off the closure and not worry about my wig falling apart because everything is interconnected. So you want to keep a little gap as you move around the top to finish off your last track. And as you get to the end, just like before, you want to do a double stitch for the last stitch, and make sure you go through the weft, through the cap, and you go under so that you have a solid knot. So now for my favorite part, once my wig is complete, I will take out all my T-pins and remove the wig from the mannequin head, and I will show you guys how I sew on the straps. So now you want to turn your wig inside out, and a little hack is I like to put my hand right where the closure is and keep about ½ inch of mesh material left over, and slowly cut the semicircle where your closure is so that you will be revealing the lace that will sit directly on your scalp. So now you want to take your elastic band and pretty much measure it from ear to ear. And what I like to do is I like to match it with the edge of the mesh cap, and that is also why you want to keep a ½ inch of mesh remaining so that you have fabric to actually sew on. You will not be sewing directly onto the closure. I personally don't like to do that, and this way your closure will lay flat on your head, And after you do this, if you put it on and you feel like it's not tight enough, you can always tighten it. But I always prefer to have a piece of fabric that's too long than too small, because it's always easier to make it the band tighter than looser. It's going to turn into a whole arts and craft project if you're trying to make it looser, or you have to take it all off. But I always like to start longer and then adjust it as I go. So you're just going to do a stitch on both sides of the fabric, tie your knot, and you are good to go. So once you're done sewing your band, you're going to cut the lace. This is one of my favorite parts. You just want to take scissors, preferably smaller scissors that you have a little bit more control, and just in a non-perfect way, you're going to make little snips to the hairline. You want to make it look as natural as possible. You don't want it to necessarily be straight across, but you just kind of want to follow and create a natural hairline. So that is it. Stay tuned for the next video where I will show you guys how I style this wig and also tint the lace.